this neutered Commission's existence.
Denise Roche.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Ki te whare, tēnā koutou katoa. The Families Commission was set up in 2003, and I think before we change something, it's quite useful to have a look at what they've been doing. They've been an able advocate for the interests of families and children. Its independent, critical role is not one our society can afford to lose at this time. And the Greens are concerned that this bill may negatively impact on their capacity to continue with that work. The Families Commission's work has included supporting and developing programs like the White Ribbon Day, a day recognised internationally when men call for an end to domestic violence. And this has now moved to a model of being self-funded, with communities and individuals promoting these events. And they conduct fabulous research, including research into the causes of family violence and, amongst others, that fabulous paper on paid parental leave, which suggested that paid parental leave leads to better child outcomes. The Families Commission has rightly identified that poor quality of rental accommodation is a major issue facing New Zealand families. In its submission to the Productivity Commission, their report on housing affordability, the Families Commission noted that poor quality housing not only has a negative impact on family health outcomes, it can also prevent families from accessing other support because of the stresses associated with living in substandard, overpriced housing. And maybe this is the reason why the government is restructuring the Families Commission with this bill. These are not issues that this government's interested in addressing. The government, I note, has been remarkably inconsistent about the Families Commission. In 2008, before the election, Mr Key put forward 3 different policies regarding the Families Commission in 4 days. On Monday, he attracted applause from the New Zealand Forum on the Family by indicating that National would rather put the money currently spent on the Families Commission into NGOs. The next day, he appeared to have changed his mind and said that National would rebalance the Families Commission in a way that United Future, the party which championed its establishment, would find tolerable. And then 2 days after that, Mr Key was reported as saying it is likely that National would subsume the office of the Children's Commissioner into the Families Commission, while criticising the worth of some of the Families Commission's work. I'm just highlighting the shifting sands of the government's thoughts on the Families Commission, because today we're looking at yet another change of direction. So, about this bill. Firstly, we strongly support the monitoring and evaluation of programs and services offered to prevent and intervene in the social issues that impact on our nation. We think there should be much more of it. We need to be continuously learning from new initiatives and the outcomes they produce. This needs to be much more than measuring the outputs of programs, but the actual outcomes for individuals accessing them. This means learning from mistakes and fostering successes. Most importantly, it means listening to the service users who have the insight of experience, so we can ensure that the money we spend makes a real difference in people's lives. We note that under this bill, the monitoring and evaluation function will be transferred to the Families Commission. Until now, that role has been undertaken by the Centre for Social Research and Evaluation under the auspices of the Ministry of Social Development. And the question remains, why has Sir Peter Gluckman recommended that an evaluation function be moved to the Families Commission? We promote the idea of an evaluation of services funded by the taxpayer in theory, but we want it to be produced by a non-biased third party. And I want to know why it's not working. Why can't evaluation and monitoring be effectively and efficiently carried out by the existing Centre for Social Research and Evaluation? Given the good public management includes the proviso of free and frank advice to the Minister, is there a problem within our public management system? Did the Minister or Sir Peter Gluckman have concerns about the Ministry's ability to provide these evaluations? Is this sending us alarm bells of other more endemic problems within the Ministry? Secondly, a newly appointed social science experts panel that this bill will set up gives us some concern. We're alarmed at how this may impact on the provision of non-biased, free and frank advice to the Minister. This government's reliance on advisory groups is a worrying trend. The Welfare Reform Working Group is a case in point. We're concerned that this government will use these advisory committees to buy the advice and research that frankly fits with their own ideology. What we saw with the Welfare Working Group was a series of recommendations that fit with the policies this government is keen to adopt, and now we see that playing out. Last week we saw the recent passing of the Social Security Youth Support and Work Focus Amendment Bill, where we see a more punitive approach under the guise of sanctions to young people who are either unemployed or are young parents, and work testing for every other beneficiary from here on in. And we'll be seeing drug testing of those on the unemployment benefit too. Basically, we are revisiting models that have failed elsewhere in the world, but funnily enough, they were suggestions from the advisory group the government hired to back up their preconceived ideas, so they'll introduce them anyway. Of particular concern in this bill is Section 13, which says that the Commission must be readily accessible to a wide range of views, but this only applies to the Commission's advocacy function, not the monitoring and evaluation and research of key issues, programs and interventions. Thirdly, in the Families Commission's Statement of Intent, we note that the budget for monitoring and evaluation has been decreased from 8,700 to 7,369. We question the volume and quality of evaluations that will be achieved on the Commission's reduced budget. We also note that the performance measures and standards for the advisory services function doesn't indicate the numbers of programs to be evaluated. It just says that they'll be done monthly or on request. We can assume from the Statement of Intent that there will be fewer programs to look at. And this doesn't reassure us that programs will be adequately monitored and evaluated and the findings disseminated to where they can be put to the most use. At the end of May, we asked the Minister in a written question about what work, if any, would be shifted from the Ministry for Social Development's Centre for Social Research and Evaluation as a result of the move to set up a new social policy evaluation and research unit within the Families Commission. And we received the reply that apart from growing up in New Zealand, a good report no doubt, no decisions had been made on any staffing changes or distribution of research and evaluation responsibilities between the Families Commission and the Ministry of Social Development. Contrast this reduced budget and lack of focus with Australia, where the state and territory governments have agreed to build a more solid evidence base on domestic violence and sexual assault as part of their national plan to reduce violence against women and children. They are committed to developing a centre of excellence to enhance the evidence base and improve on-the-ground responses to violence against women and children. The federal government is investing $86 million in national initiatives to improve the lives of women who have experienced violence and towards stopping violence against women altogether. A centre for excellence versus a reduced Families Commission. I know which country is investing in families, and I hate to admit it, but the Australians are way ahead of us on understanding that there are longer-term costs associated with doing nothing about these social issues. Mr. Speaker, we'll be voting against this bill. We believe it hands far too much power to the Minister to dictate research results that support the ideology of the day. We're unconvinced that the advocacy role of the Families Commission will remain unchanged, and most importantly, we think that it does nothing to advance good outcomes for families. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Tim McIndoe.